Hello and welcome everyone to our weekly session titled Latest in Bitcoin Tech, where we read through and discuss the Bitcoin Optech weekly newsletter. And there are a few familiar people here, a few new joinees as well. Those who have attended preceding sessions know the format in which we orchestrate these sessions. Those of you who joined for the first time, and just give a brief overview. So the Bitcoin Optech newsletter basically is a summary of the latest happenings in the world of Bitcoin, latest news, something that was relevant, an event that was relevant, a news article that was relevant, what release candidates are meaning of, and there are some notable code and documentation changes in Bitcoin and its multiple L1 and L2 implementations. And it's a more discussion-oriented session. It's not that somebody will teach or read and others have to be passive attendees. All right, it's a session where we're all on an even level and we're all here to participate. So anytime you wanna chime in, just feel free to interrupt the speaker and ask any question you have or any anecdote that you'd like to share or any insight that you'd like to share. All right, and your understanding of the question. Feel free to do that. The preface of this week's newsletter, guys, describes a proposal to manage multiple concurrent music queue signing sessions with a minimum of 8. Links to a thread about adding editors for the Bits repository and discusses a set of tools that allow quickly porting the Bitcoin core GitHub project to a self-hosted Gitlab project. Also included are our regular sections announcing new releases and release candidates and summarizing recent changes to popular Bitcoin infrastructure software. So this is what we're going to go through as if time permits. The first news article is about BIP21 URIs. Okay, and the title is Updating BIP21 Bitcoin URIs. Jose Baker posted to Delving Bitcoin to discuss how BIP21 URIs are specified to be used, how they're used today, and how they can be used in the future. The specification requires the body immediately after the colon to be a legacy P2PKH Bitcoin address. Example, such and such, Bitcoin 1 Bob. After the body, additional parameters can be passed using HTTP query encoding, including addresses for non-legacy address formats. For example, a Bech32M address could be such and such Bitcoin 1 Bob and Bech32M BC1 P Bob. However, this is significantly different from how Bitcoin URIs are being used. Non-P2PKH addresses are often used as the body, and sometimes the body is left blank by software that only wants to receive payment through an alternative payment protocol. Additionally, Baker notes that Bitcoin URIs are increasingly being used to transmit privacy-respecting persistent identifiers, such as those for silent payments and offers. As discussed on the thread, an improvement could be having the creator of the URI specify all of the payment methods they supported using their parameters. For example, Bitcoin, such and such, the address is mentioned. The spender who is usually responsible for paying fees could then choose their preferred payment method from the list, although some minor technical points were still being discussed at the time of writing. No major criticisms of this approach have been posted. So this news article talks about BIP21 URIs. We've covered BIP21 URIs on the surface level in one of the preceding sessions. What are BIP21 URIs? Basically, they are Bitcoin addresses. All right, they are Bitcoin addresses which can have multiple parameters or which can have multiple fallback addresses. Okay. So, for instance, up till now we have addresses that are, for instance, P2PKH address, right, in which you pay to the public key hash. We have a P2TR address in which we pay to Taproot. We have a P2SH in which we pay to a script. Okay. What BIP21 URIs do is that URIs basically stand for Universal Resource Identifier. I think it's Universal Resource Identifier, Universal Reference Identifier. It's Universal Resource Identifier. Okay. This is a very old BIP, by the way, BIP21, as it suggests. I think it's 2011, 12, 13, something like that. Okay. So yeah, what this BIP proposes is that you can have an address in which you can stipulate multiple different avenues of accepting payment. Okay, like for instance, somebody has a P2P catch address. They also have a P2DR address. Let's say they also have a silent payment address. They also have a lightning invoice in compliance with Bolt 11, and they also have an offers invoice in compliance with Bolt 12. All right, and they want one single address to share with whoever is making payments to them. All right, and they are open to accepting payments through any of these modes of payments. All right, so I have a P2PR, I have a P2PR address, I have a P2P catch address, I have a silent payment address, I have a lightning invoice, I have an offer invoice. All right, and I let you decide that hey, these are the avenues through which I can accept money. You owe me bitcoins. All right, feel free to pay in any of the manner that is convenient to you. Okay, so this is what basically is a BIP21 URI. If you can go a little bit in detail, examples are given here, what you can do with these BIP21 URIs, all right? You can first, like, this is just the address, right? The address will look like this. This is like the bare address, Bitcoin, which is the network to which the payment is being made. And this is the address, okay? This is like very, very naive and trivial, okay? Now, what customization can you do? To BIP21 URIs, you can add a label, okay? Like, we're all used to adding labels, like those of us who use UPI. There is an option for you to add a text that could carry any relevant information pertaining the transaction. And even some Lightning wallets have now enabled these labels. If I'm not wrong, even some Bitcoin wallets have now enabled these labels that when you are sending payment to someone, they also allow you to add some metadata, some information that could be related to the payment itself, the name of the recipient or the purpose for which you're willing or you're making that payment, ABCD, whatever, if you're okay. And that information is not embedded on the blockchain, okay? It's only between the sender and the recipient. So, like, you can add a label, Luke Jr., like, for instance, Luke Jr. is sending this payment to someone, he can add this label, and this will not be embedded on the blockchain, okay? Only the recipient will know that, okay, this payment is to be made to Luke Jr. You can add amount to it, okay? Like, for instance, this is the address, then you add the amount over here. 20.3 bitcoins is what you want, and then the label, okay, Luke Jr. And this is an example of requesting 50 bitcoins with a message. Okay, this is Bitcoin, this is the address, then this is the amount, and there's the label, and there's the message as well. Okay, like the message says donation. So you can do things with which like the stereotypical addresses do not allow you to do. And some future versions, okay, this was like the proposed implementation of BIP21. Okay, let's keep in mind the BIP is pretty old, is the date mentioned. What year? 2012. That's like 12 years ago. Okay, so it's a very old BIP. And at that point in time, we did not have P2PR, we did not have P2W we did not have P2W SH, we did not have all of these addresses. I mean, people were using P2PKH. Okay, so what this BIP, when it was drafted, what the author made or did is that, or stipulated is that for this the URI to be standard. Okay, like I told you, you can have multiple fallback addresses. I'll first show you the example of fallback addresses if that's possible. If it's here. Yeah, okay, so this is like a fallback address. Okay, Bitcoin address, this is your Bitcoin address. Okay, then this is your P2SH address, and this is your Best32 address, which could be a silent payment address. This is another Best32 address. This is like a regular Best32 address, and this is a Best32N address. And this is a Lightning. Okay, so this is how an address could look like. All right. So if Bob wants to accept payments from Alice, Bob will send this address. Okay. Now it's up to Alice. If Alice wants to send the payment on the mainnet, then she can use this address. If Alice wants if to spend the payment in the P2SH, then sorry, then basically she can use P2SH address. If Alice wants to transfer the money over the Lightning network, then she can do that using the Lightning. This is the Bolt 20 offers. Okay, so this is one address basically where the sender can give option to where the receiver can give an option to the sender to send them payment through different addresses and also through different protocols like layer 1 or layer 2. Okay, and also gives you a lot of customization where you can add a label, you can add an amount, you can add a message, and you can do a lot of things. Okay, but the BIP was proposed in 2012. Okay, back then P2PKH was like the main thing, and we did not have a lot of modern addresses or avenues of accepting payment that we do today. And that is why it's stipulated that the first is referred to as the root. Okay, like this is the root. The first address is your root. That the root address should always be P2PKH. Okay, after that you can add multiple key value. Okay, like in future, if some other you can root address always has to be P2PKH. Okay, now Holy Baker is suggesting that this bit needs to be redone or it needs to be edited because back then P2PKH was like the main thing, but now a lot of people use P2TR, P2SH, P2WPKH, P2WSH, and a lot of other things. Silent payments, for instance, like lightning invoices, offers, etc. So the usage of P2PKH, even though it's mainstream, but there are a lot of people who might not want to use P2PKH, so it doesn't make any sense for you to always stipulate in the BIP that the first root address has to be P2PKH. Okay, so we need to get rid of that. Okay, whatever you want to put, you can put. You want to put silent payments at first, then put silent payments as first. You want to put a lightning invoice at first, then put the lightning invoice at first. Okay, so the standardization prerequisite that BIP21 proposes that the root address should always be P2PKH should be removed. This is a proposal made by Jose Baker, who's a developer who's working on this. Okay, who's working on this BIP21 URI, who's taking it forward. Okay, and there are some other proposals as well. If you go through the comment section, okay, like this is Ruben Thompson who suggests that if we were to go with Bitcoin address one, option two, address two, and option three, address three, then there's an argument to be made that the order of preference should be address two. Okay, because address one is necessarily going to be the least modern and most backwards compatible address format and thus likely least desirable. So what he suggests is that okay, let's retain that mechanism of P2PKH, but let's put it this way that address two will be given first preference and then address three will be given the second preference. And if the wallet that is sending the payment does not recognize address two and address three, let's say address two is P2TR, address three is let's say it's a lightning invoice, okay, and your wallet does not understand P2DR, it does not understand lightning, then it will fall back to the first address. So the first address should be the last option. Okay, your preference should be address two, then address three, and if your wallet does not understand the sender's wallet does not understand address two and address three, only then it should go back to address one because address one is going to be the most outdated and the least desirable one, like it is today. Like for instance, tomorrow you never know, maybe the usage of P2PKH will go down. And that is why people would not want to use P2PKs. They would want to use more modern avenues of making payments. So it should be the final fallback address. Okay, that is one suggestion that he makes. All right, and then he says, similarly, an updated BIP21 should address the question of which address has priority when off-chain addresses have their own custom parameters. Okay, how do you signify B2 addresses take precedence? All right, now there are two networks, like for instance, this address mainnet address, okay, and it also has a Boltwell address. So these are two different protocols, right? Layer one, layer two. So there should also be an avenue for you to determine that, hey, my preference is L2. So first look for L2. First look invoice, all right? Because I for some reason want my payment in on the Lightning network. So you should first give preference to the Lightning invoice, to the Lightning network, and then to the Bitcoin main network. So there should also be an avenue for you to stipulate which network do you want to use first, whether it's L1 or L2. Okay. Yeah. So whoever wants to dig deep into the rabbit hole can go through the comments as well. They're like very informative. So broadly, as this news article discusses that, hey, this is BIP21. BIP21 proposes URIs, okay, which are an avenue for you to share multiple addresses, multiple fallback addresses, and whatever address the sender finds feasible for whatever reason, maybe his wallet understands one of these parameters, maybe the fee is less, the sender has an option to choose that specific protocol or address to make the payment. And also, this address allows you to accept both L1 and L2 payments with one address, which other wallets don't. Like you have a different address for Lightning and you have a different address for Bitcoin. Even if you're using a wallet that allows you to make both Bitcoin and Lightning payments, right? Like your Bitcoin payment is in a separate section, separate plugin, and your Lightning payments are in a separate section, separate plugin. Okay, you can't merge them. You can't create one address that can accept both Bitcoin and Lightning payments, but BIP21 URI does that. Okay, and yeah, so this is broadly what it is. Okay, uh, if any thoughts? I hope the Modi Baker proposed is also clear. And if you all have any questions, anything to share, or any anecdotes, please go ahead and feel free to speak. The point was made clear, right? Web 21, what Web 21 is trying to achieve.
Yes. I think, are you aware of any wallet that has integrated it?
Web 21,
Yes, BIP21.
no.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, no, I don't think this has gone mainstream. I mean, it's just a proposal. I don't think any versions of Bitcoin core or any popular implementation have adopted them. It's a proposal I feel that has been languishing since long. That is what I believe. My research might
Right.
be limited, but I believe this is just a proposal, and I personally am not aware if any implementations of Bitcoin implement this mechanism.
Hmm.
Cool. All right. The second article for now, I'd like to give it a script, okay, because this phone and we have a lot of time and watch a lot of math, so I'm not very sure whether this is something that we'd like to cover in this session. We'll come back to it if time permits us. Okay. The next one is discussion about adding more web editors. Avid Chow posted to the Bitcoin Dev mailing list to suggest the addition of web editors to help the current editor. The current editor, Luke Dash Jr., says he is backlogged and has requested help. Chow suggested two well known expert contributors to become editors, which seemed to have support. Also discussed was whether the additional editors should have the ability to assign bit numbers. No clear resolution has been reached as of this working. Anybody has an idea what like anybody would like to take a shot at who a web editor is? And what role does a web editor play? What are his responsibilities?
Is it separate from the role of a maintainer? Is that a separate designation?
Yeah,
Hmm.
because bits are not a part of the source code, right? If you download Bitcoin core
Right.
from GitHub, right, so bits will not be downloaded. Only the code will be downloaded. Bits are
Right.
only
Okay.
available on GitHub.
Editor might be the maintainers of those BIPs. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's like they're editors of the web basically. So I mean, what the designation is pretty clear, but what are their tasks? Okay, it's like one of their tasks is to assign a number to the web. Okay, the first and the most important task of a web editor is to ensure that the proposal that has been made actually is directly related to Bitcoin, and as the name suggests, it improves Bitcoin, right? If anybody comes up with a proposal that is common to cryptography or cybersecurity or whatever, and it is not directly related to Bitcoin, that is not a bit. So the first job is that whenever a proposal is agreed upon, the web editor, before enlisting it, has to ensure that this is a proposal that is directly related to Bitcoin and it actually does what the name suggests. It improves Bitcoin. Okay, it's actually a Bitcoin improvement proposal. Once that has been done, once it has been confirmed that hey, this proposal is actually something to do with Bitcoin and it actually improves Bitcoin, then the second thing is, like for instance, checking whether the BIP is actually technically sound. Okay, to test the BIP, what that BIP is trying to propose, whether that BIP induces any new bugs in the software, whether that BIP is compatible with the current version of the software, whether that BIP is backwards compatible, whether a huge amount of software and hardware upgrade would be needed to incorporate that BIP, whether that BIP would need a soft fork or it would not need a soft fork, whether the contemporary hardware that the node runners, etc., are using is compatible with this BIP. So, and I feel this is like the most difficult task of any BIP editor. Okay, because it's like you have to be technically so sound, and I think it's one of the most difficult tasks. I feel like you have to be technically so sound that anybody can come up with a proposal, and you should have the technical literacy to test that against multiple parameters. Because when we're talking about Bitcoin, we're talking about a lot of money that is at stake, right? A lot of a very high reputation. of the BIP. Okay, so the people who are reading the BIPs, we want them to get a clear understanding of what the BIP is trying to say. So the BIP editor might even check them for typos. The BIP editor might check them for to ensure that they are technically sound. And after all of that is done, the BIP editor also has to assign numbers to the BIPs. Okay, and his job then does not end here. If he enlists a BIP, his job does not end here because there are a lot of developers who would also come up with suggestions as to make that BIP that he has stated that he is occupied with other responsibilities and he's not able to meet ends and he wants support. Agachao posted to the Bitcoin devs mailing list and he suggested that we need to add a few more BIP editors to reduce the work burden on Luke Dash Jr. Two names were proposed. Let me see if the post mentions that those two names. Few people have even volunteered and few names have been proposed here. Yeah, Ruben Songson, somebody whose post we just now read, and Kanjure. I hope that's how it's pronounced. These are the two names proposed by Avachao. Okay,
Yeah,
so
Kansure is Brand Bishop. He posted a poll on Twitter asking if we should accept that.
okay, yeah, I saw that poll as well. Okay, so this is maybe his pseudonym.
Okay, also just a clarification, is BIP editor the BIP editor or is it specific to the BIPs? Or is there any
No,
categorization?
I think if we had a different BIP editor for every BIP, it would have been very easy. But the fact is what's overboard in Luke Dash Jr. here is that there's one BIP editor, one person is looking after the Luke Dash Jr. Checking whether they technically sound, checking whether they're actually related to Bitcoin, checking for typos, maybe constantly updating them, and after updating, checking them again, assign them bit numbers. All of this is being done by only one person, Luke Dash Jr. That is it. Okay. Yeah, so no clear resolution has been reached as of this writing. I mean, if you propose a BIP, okay, and after it gets enlisted a typo from the BIP, all right, once that BIP is enlisted on Bitcoin Core's GitHub repository, then it's done and dusted. Even the author has no control to make any changes to it once it gets quote unquote approved, not implemented in the code, but the BIP itself gets approved and it's out there. Then even the author has no control. It's only the editor then who can make changes. So yeah, two more people have been suggested. Let's see what happens. They'll probably cover it in the future sessions about what happens and what doesn't happen. Yeah, that being it. The next one is GitLab backup. Yeah, someone wants to talk. All right. Yeah. GitLab backup for Bitcoin Core GitHub project. Uh, Fabian Giles posted to Delving Bitcoin about maintaining a backup of the Bitcoin Core project's GitHub account on a self-hosted GitLab instance. In case the project ever needed to leave GitHub suddenly, this would make all existing issues and pull requests accessible on GitLab within a short amount of time, allowing work to continue with only a brief interruption. Jal provided a preview of the project on GitLab and plans to keep backups going forward to allow rapidly switching to GitLab if necessary. His post has not received any comments as of this writing, but we thank him for making the potential transition as easy as possible. Okay. I hope the at least the wording is clear. Okay, so I'd like to pose a question. Okay, and I'd like some active participation in this answer because I'd like to also know what you all think about it. What if GitHub tomorrow terminates Bitcoin Core's repository? Right, it's on GitHub, right? What if GitHub tomorrow terminates Bitcoin Core's repository? What repercussions will this have? Any idea? Like what thoughts come to your mind if one day you wake up and you get to know Bitcoin Core's repository, which was on GitHub, is now terminated, suspended for some reason? impact will it have? What repercussions will it have? What do you all think? Or if any at all?
I think the development of the repository will stagnate and it will take a lot of time to get back.
No, that's absolutely true.
The mirror of the same repository has been backed up by, I'm sure many developers would have backups and mirrors of the same repository. Probably coordinating it into a new repository would be a little time consuming.
True. Yeah, that is true as well. I'm not aware if it's being mirrored. Might be. I'm not sure, but I'm not aware if it's being mirrored. Okay.
And also, person knows there is someone working on a Git implementation on Noster.
Yeah, I mean, I that was like long back, like when Nostr just started. Okay, and I think Jack Dorsey announced a bounty, and he kept on increasing that bounty. And I was always wondering why is nobody replying. I don't know if somebody is working on that, but Jack Dorsey has been beating trumpets about giving a lot of money to somebody who can build like a version hosting, uh, uh, a version controlling tool on Nostr. I don't know if somebody's actually working on it, but he kept on increasing his BIP, his bounty. It was a few bitcoins, I think, for whoever can come up with a substitute of GitHub hosted on Nostr. That would also be great. Yeah. I mean, like when I just got into Bitcoin, okay, like my understanding was very trivial and I was pretty confused. I was like, all the code is here and what if the code goes? Because at that point of time, when I was like just entering Bitcoin, this was something like childish questions that you have when you're completely trivial. And I was like, everything is on GitHub, and what if GitHub goes? I at that point of time did not understand how decentralized software protocols work and how there are nodes, and every node runner has his own version of the code, etc. So yeah, I mean, Bitcoin in itself would not quote unquote suffer because obviously everybody has a copy. All node runners have a copy. Even people who don't run nodes, they have copies of Bitcoin core in their computer for some reason or the other, just for academic reasons or just for doing something on the test net or etc. etc. Or even if you're reading a book like Bitcoin or learning Bitcoin from the command line, you do a lot of things. You fiddle with your testnet node. So yeah, the code will not be hampered, but I think the most important thing that will be taken away from us is the history, is how Bitcoin evolved. And I think there are over 30,000 PR reviews and comments, etc., which will all be lost. Okay, so like whenever there is a PR, there are a lot of people who comment to it. All right, and even today, when you are going through a PR, okay, it is always the comments that reviewers make that help you a lot. Okay, like even if you, for instance, if you're going through this delving Bitcoin, here we go, delving Bitcoin. After the article, you generally go through the comments, okay, because the comments also have a lot of important information. So whether there's a PR or whatever there are hundreds and hundreds. I think there are over 30,000 comments on PRs, which will be lost. Okay, and that is like the history of how Bitcoin evolved being lost, even though you have preserved the code because everybody has a copy, or node runners have a copy, almost all Bitcoiners have a copy, but those 30,000 plus comments, those PR reviews, etc., they will be lost, which I feel is like a part of Bitcoin's legacy. Even today, if you go through a BIP of 2012, you'll probably go through what the code reviewers said back then, and it helps a lot. That is what will be lost. So a Fablin jar has.
Wouldn't a repos mirror have the PR comments?
Yes, it will have a PR comment, but I personally am not aware if we have a mirror. If we have a mirror, I personally am not aware if we have a mirror. Yeah, if
Okay,
we have a mirror, then obviously it'll be preserved. Everything will be preserved.
yeah. Few years back, I remember somebody probably in a podcast or somewhere, or I don't remember where I read or heard it. There was some dude who was keeping a physical copy of the blockchain, I mean, the printed copy of the blockchain data,
Okay, why was that?
in case of a solar flare or whatever. I mean,
Oh,
paranoid. I'm not sure where I read it or who did it or whatever, but I heard this.
yeah. I mean, it gets to you, man. I mean, like when you get into Bitcoin, I personally feel there's a line that you need to draw, and it's very possible for you to become absolutely paranoid. Like some people go to. I'm not specifically speaking about this person, but yeah, even I have come across a lot of people that go to absolute extremes when it comes to preserving their data and doing absolutely obnoxious things, like maintaining a hard copy of the blockchain. Yeah. So I'm not a very surprised mirroring. I mean, I hope that you understand the difference between syncing and mirroring, right? Syncing is different and mirroring is different, right?
What is the difference? I'm not 100% sure about this.
Okay. Syncing is, I mean, like for instance, if I synced the GitHub repository on today's 11th of March, if I synced it on 9th of March, okay, then my version will not have anything that happened on 10th or 11th of March, okay. If I want the data of 10th or and 11th of March, again I will have to sync it. Mirroring is that it just keep, I mean, even 10 seconds ago, if somebody wrote a comment, that comment is with me. Okay, so I don't have to constantly sync it. The moment something happens in GitHub, let's say I'm mirroring it on GitLab, the moment somebody writes a comment on GitHub, immediately that comment comes on GitLab. Okay, so it's instantaneous. It's like a mirror basically. If somebody's writing a comment there, it comes here. If somebody's created a PR there, it comes here. But with syncing is like, for instance, how you might sync your WhatsApp chat. Right? If you synced it 6 months ago, that's the latest copy that you have. It doesn't constantly evolve. That is syncing, and mirroring is it constantly evolves. Every second evolves.
It's like a constant cron job running in the background.
Yeah, it's just like a mirror. You know, it happens there. You go right now and you come into a PR and you go look at your GitLab. Let's say GitLab is mirroring GitHub. You go to GitHub, you write a comment on a PR, you come back to GitHub, immediately that PR is there. But with mirroring, you will have to again sync it. Okay, you sunk it. And you synced it, and then you went to GitHub and you wrote a comment. You will have to come back and again sync. Okay, so it's like that. What happens, I was saying, is that there are technical impediments to mirror the GitHub repository to GitLab. There are some obstacles which are not allowing it to do, or it's not compatible with GitLab, and then thus the only option is to sync it constantly, and that is what he is proposing for now. I think mirroring, he tried mirroring. That is what the post mentions, but he was not able to do that due to some technical impediments. What he's doing is he is thinking. And like he's saying, it's not the most ideal way to do anything, but it's like the worst case scenario. And recently, I think not a long time ago, 12, 18 months, something like that, Tornado Cash was accused of money laundering, and their GitHub repository got terminated. Okay, because GitHub obviously is centralized, and if they are pressurized by anybody who has a high authority or power, then they will obviously comply and toe the line. And if that happens, then you lose Bitcoin's history, and thus it's highly imperative that we have a backup. And he suggests GitLab. I think one reason could be that GitLab is open source. There are multiple versions of GitLab. Okay, the basic version of GitLab is is like free and open source. Okay, and then it gives you some added features for which you have to pay. That is not free. Okay, and I think they gave it to free for some to some people. I think if there are some big research organizations, then even the special avenues and the special features, I think they provide it for free. So yeah, that is what he suggests, that we need to do that. Now the question is, like for instance, I mean, you had an account with GitHub, right? GitLab cannot recognize that. Like for instance, if Peter Woolek commented on a PR, okay, on GitHub, okay. Now GitLab doesn't know what his credentials are, right? What his user ID and password is, okay. So how does GitLab give, for instance, access to Peter Wool, if Peter Wool wants to go back to a comment that he wrote 6 months ago on GitHub, if we migrate to GitLab and he wants to go back to a comment that he wrote 6 months ago, how can he do that, right? Because GitLab does not recognize who Peter Wool is. It will just sync, okay, but it cannot give you access because it does not understand that what your user ID and your password is. So basically, there are two types of account on GitHub: private and public. Okay, the public accounts make the email addresses public. Okay, so what will happen is that if your email address is public, then GitHub will use that email address to create a new account for you. Okay, and I believe that what might happen is that they'll probably, you can click, for instance, on a forgot password or something like that, and an email will go to your public email address on GitHub, and then you can add a password to it, and then when you do that, you get access to all your previous data, and you can go back and edit your comments and everything. For people who have private, there is no avenue. There is no avenue because in that case, GitHub will not share their email IDs, because their email IDs are private. So in that situation, you can like read all the comments that you made previously, the comment, your history on the repository is preserved, but you cannot go and edit it. Like you'll get a completely new account, you can go and edit the work that you've done previously. But this is like a worst case scenario. At least you preserve the code, at least you preserve all the PRs, at least you preserve all the bips, at least you preserve all the comments. And people who have their email addresses as public, they can continue working where they left from. So this is something really that needs to be appreciated that Java is doing. He's trying to sync the GitHub repository from GitHub to GitLab. GitLab being open, and that is why it's like safer because there's no one single entity that can manipulate their power, which might be the case at GitHub. This was the fourth news article. Cool. We're done with the news articles now. Any questions? Any thoughts? Anything to share, or should we move forward? Cool. We will move to release and release candidates. The first pointer is Eclair version 0.10.0 is a new major release of this LN node implementation. It adds official support for the dual funding feature and Eclair is an implementation of Lightning Network. Okay, as I mentioned, it's coming with a new release. Okay, it's like a new version that's 0.10.0. It adds some features. Okay, firstly, it adds support for dual funding channels. Okay, this we've discussed in detail previously. Okay, up till now, the mechanism that we were using to set up Lightning channels was single funded, where there's an initiator who single-handedly and unilaterally funds the 2 of 2 multi-signature address. But now we're also working on dual funding channels where, again, either one of two or both of them. Dual funding channels does not necessitate that both the channel partners have to inject liquidity. It's absolutely possible that only one channel partner injects liquidity, but it also gives you an avenue for both the channel partners to inject liquidity. And this is also something that gives rise to what is being referred to as the liquidity advertisement or the liquidity market, where you can advertise that you want to inject liquidity into a dual funded Lightning channel and get paid in exchange of it. You can get leads for injecting liquidity and also the routing fee. Okay, so it adds official support for all of Eclair's clients have added official support for this dual funded Lightning channel feature. An up-to-date implementation of about 20 offers. Would anybody like to take a shot on what offers are? Lightning offers. So basically what offers allow you to send Lightning invoices over the Lightning network. Okay. Now, currently, what happens is if you want to accept a Bitcoin payment from someone, okay, what do? You send your Bitcoin address to them, right? You can write it on a piece of paper and give it to them. You can email your Bitcoin address to them. You can SMS your Bitcoin address to them. You can send it via Signal, ABCD, but there is no provision for you to share your Bitcoin address with somebody through the Bitcoin network. Okay, so if somebody owes you payment, you cannot send them your Bitcoin address through the Bitcoin network. Okay, that payment has to be that payment address has to be sent from outside the network, and same happens in the Lightning network. If you want somebody to send you sats over the Lightning network, you either give them a QR code and they scan the QR code, or you give either you copy and paste an address. Or you get a message saying copy to clipboard, and then you send that address to them over an SMS or whatever, and then they make the payment. There's no provision for you to share that address over the Lightning network itself. Offers adds that functionality. Offers allow you to transmit, send and receive Lightning invoices over the Lightning network itself. So you don't have to bear the burden of sharing invoices with someone manually outside the network. That's what offers are. Okay, and splicing. And they also add another feature that is called splicing. Anybody would like to take a shot on what splicing is?
I think splicing is increasing the liquidity on one side of the channel. So I don't know how it happens. Does it happen by closing the channel and creating a new funding transaction? That might be the case, but my understanding of splicing is only on a high level, that it includes increasing or decreasing even, but generally it's only increasing the liquidity on one end of the channel.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're
as far
right.
as I know, as far as I know, it includes an on-chain event. So there is an on-chain transaction
Hmm.
for splicing.
Right.
Right. So
This is
yeah,
a nice article. Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just saying from fundamental understanding of Lightning Network, I think it must include some transaction because the liquidity in the channel that can move back and forth is only the amount that was originally sent to the funding transaction output.
Right. You all can see this infograph on my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is how basically pricing works. Okay. So this is your first funding transaction. This is the two of two funding transaction. Okay, where you inject, like you make a one Bitcoin. This is an on-chain payment, one Bitcoin. Okay, and zero point 0.5 Bitcoin goes to the two of two multi-sig address. This is your funding transaction. This is the change. Okay. Now, for instance, you want to inject more liquidity to the Lightning channel. Previously, what used to happen is that you will have to shut this channel and you will have to go on chain and then you'll have to start another channel. Now, what mechanism has been added is that you can create a new funding transaction. Okay, so you can create a new funding transaction. You can use the output of this funding transaction as the input of one of the new funding transactions. Okay, so you create a new funding transaction. You add one, two, three, four inputs to it. One of the inputs is the output of the previous funding transaction. Then you add more inputs. Zero point 0.3 BTC from Alice, zero point 0.3 BTC from Bob, 0.5 BTC from Charlie, whatever. Okay, and then change. Bob gets some change and Charlie gets some change, and then this 3 point BTC from Alice and zero point 0.2 BTC from Bob are added along with zero point 0.5 BTC. Okay, and these three inputs make one output, one BTC. Okay, and then this is your funding transaction. So basically, what Lightning does is that it uses the output of the previous funding transaction as one of the inputs of the new funding transaction. And now the Lightning channel is no longer referencing to the first funding transaction. The Lightning channel now recognizes the new funding transaction as funding transaction, and the liquidity has been increased from zero point 0.5 BTC to 1 BTC. This is broadly what splicing is. And this is a nice article by Voltage. Like they have some nice graphics as well to explain to you what is happening. The first node sends an STFU message, then they send a splice message and send a splice acknowledged message. Then the splice transaction happens and the liquidity is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 transactions. And after that, it gets confirmed on the main chain. So yeah, who would like to dig deep into it can go through this article. But broadly, this is what it is. Just takes the output of the previous funding transaction, uses it as one of the inputs for the new funding transaction. That is what pricing is. So yeah, Xlayer version 0.10.0 is a new major release that adds these functionalities. Supports for dual funding feature and bolt 12 offers and splicing, and in addition to various on-chain fee improvements, more configuration options, performance enhancements, and various minor big bug fixes. Sorry. The next release and release candidate is Bitcoin Core 26.1 RC1 is the release candidate for a maintenance release of this predominant full node implementation. Okay, so there's like Bitcoin Core 26, okay, which is obviously the 26th upgrade, and then ahead of that there should be Bitcoin Core. Logically, it should be Bitcoin Core 27. Okay, what happens is that, like we all know, whenever software is created, it is tested, right? Like it's in its beta stage or whatever. A group of developers or a group of people, users generally test that software, and whatever bugs they come across, they probably report it to the developers, and the developers will fix those bugs. Okay, and then the actual version is released to the public. Now, because when the software is being tested, there are only a handful of people that generally test it, right? And when that software goes mainstream, when people have access to it, then the number of the pool of people that are using that software goes up exponentially, and that is why it is highly possible that the handful of people that were testing the software in the beta version, for instance, might have overlooked or not have come across a lot of bugs which, when software goes mainstream, people come across, right? Like for instance, any company, whether it's Apple or Google, whenever they release a new Android version operating system or a new iOS operating system, it's not that they won't test it, right? They test it rigorously, but obviously their pool is limited. Now, when this goes mainstream, there are millions and billions of users millions and maybe even billions of people who are using this software as compared to maybe a few hundred people that were testing it in the beta stage. And thus it very frequently happens that a big company will announce a software update, and after that, I mean, there'll be a lot of bugs in it. Okay, so what happens is that this RC release candidate 26.1, what it does is that it does not add any new features. It only fixes the bugs that Bitcoin Core 26 had. Okay, like Bitcoin Core 27 will fix all the bugs that Bitcoin Core 26 had. At the same time, Bitcoin Core 27 will add new features. Okay, but Bitcoin Core 26.1c 1RC release candidate will add no new features. It will have the same features that Bitcoin Core 26 had, but it will fix the bugs and enhance the performance of Bitcoin Core. Okay, so that's generally in most cases that is how the nomenclature is. Like 26, when you go from 26 to 27, generally what happens is that along with fixing the bugs of 26, 27 will also have additional features. Generally, you go when you go from 26 to 26.1 or 26.2, it generally has the same features. It does not add any features, but it fixes the bugs and enhances the improvements of the software. So yeah, 26.1 RC is a release candidate for maintenance release of its predominant full node. It's a release candidate. So I think it's not out there yet. But when it comes out, people who are using Bitcoin Core 26 can upgrade to this release candidate, and if they're experiencing any bugs, then hopefully those bugs have been fixed. Any questions pertaining this section? Cool. We will move to this section. We'll try and take these two first. Okay, the second one and the third one. So Eclair PR number 2829 allows plugins to set a policy for contributing funds towards a dual funded channel open. By default, Eclair will not contribute funds towards opening a dual funded channel. This PR allows plugins to override that policy and decide how much of the node operator's funds should be contributed towards a new channel. So, I mean, this is again about Eclair. What it says is that it allows plugins to set a policy for contributing funds towards a dual funded channel. Okay, so up till now, there was a mechanism where like Eclair's implementations or Eclair's clients had a default mechanism for dual funded channels where whenever they wanted to establish a dual funded channel, there was a, a pre-stipulated amount that was injected in the form of liquidity for a dual funded channel. Now a feature has been added to override that policy. A plugin has been added to override that policy, so you can manually set what amount of liquidity you want to inject into a dual funded lightning channel and decide how much of the node operator's funds should be contributed towards a new channel. So you have like you can define, you can configure your node and decide what amount of money do you want to inject as a form of liquidity in a dual funded channel and override the default setting. Does it override the default setting or does it completely get rid of? No, it overrides. It overrides the default setting. Yeah. So yeah, that is it. The next one is coin selection features, including allowing users to choose their coin selection strategy and also allowing a user to specify some inputs that must be included in a transaction, but allowing the coin selection strategy to find any additional needed inputs. This is something that I found really interesting. Okay, what LND's this PR suggests is that uh, a user should be allowed to handpick inputs, right? Like specify some inputs, as it says, specify some inputs that must be included in a transaction, but allowing the coin selection strategy to find any additional needed inputs. Okay, so you should be allowed to handpick a UTXO that you want to spend. Okay, generally what happens is that the wallets have a coin selection algorithm, all right? They do their own mumbo jumbo, and as per them, the most optimal UTXO they select and they inject it as an input for the transaction. Okay, what LNDs this PR suggests or tries to achieve is that the user should have the prerogative to handpick which UTXO the user wants. Okay, so if you are making a payment, let's say if you want to fund a 2 of 2 multi-signature transaction, then as a user, you should have the provision to handpick the UTXO that you want. Okay, this is what this PR tries to achieve, which I find is like very logical and something that I also feel is very essential. And what second feature it adds is that allowing the coin selection strategy to find any additional needed inputs. Okay, now let's say you have handpicked a UTXO that I want this UTXO to be selected for my next transaction. Okay, what if that UTXO is not adequate for you to cover the amount of money that you want to pay? Let's say you want to pay one Bitcoin, you want to inject one Bitcoin in a 2 of 2 funding transaction to inject liquidity on the Lightning channel, but the UTXO that you picked is of zero point 0.5 BTC, so you still lack zero point 0.5 BTC. So one mechanism is that the wallet itself selects a coin selection algorithm out of the multiple coin selection algorithms at its disposal, and then selects the remaining zero point 0.5 BTC. The other option is that you yourself can choose which coin selection algorithm you want. Okay, like for instance, like Bitcoin Core has a new coin selection algorithm, Coin Grinder, there's a branch and bound, there's random selection, and there are other coin selection algorithms as well. All right, so you can handpick coin selection algorithm. I think this gives a lot of control. Uh, to the user of the wallet, that firstly you can handpick a UTXO that you want to inject as liquidity in a funding transaction. Secondly, if you do not have adequate liquidity, then you also have the option to yourself stipulate what coin selection algorithm the wallet should use to make up for the lacking liquidity. This is what this PR says. Any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think it's only specific for LND, right?
I mean, I
But
hope the point has been made, right?
yes, yes. I think what I'm curious about is that I don't think that any on-chain wallet also allows you to specify the specific coins or inputs you want to use. And I think that's a really valuable feature. But I don't think any wallet has currently integrated it.
Right. I think if you hand curate, if you go to Bitcoin Core and you hand curate a wallet, then obviously
Right.
it's all yours, whatever you want to enter. But yeah, if you rely on a GUI enabled wallet in your phone, then I personally am not aware of any wallet that does
Right.
that.
And I imagine to be
So
a
yeah,
really
but it's,
nice interface if somebody can create it that there are multiple coins and you can see them, that more valuable coins, the coins with higher input amounts, are bigger in size and there are small coins. So it also gives you an idea that you need to consolidate your small inputs, and also just an idea that how fees works on Bitcoin, so that if you're spending a bigger UTXO, no, I think I'm wrong. So it does not depend on that, right? If you're spending a bigger UTXO, no, yeah, in terms of amount, your fee does not change, right? Because the fee is only dependent on the transaction size, which is not dependent on the transaction amount.
Coin selection is
yeah, but in
implemented.
most cases, if you're using a bigger UTXO, you will not. I mean, just to answer Shan's question, if you're using a bigger UTXO, ideally, not a thumb rule, ideally your fee should be less, because if you're using a smaller UTXO, there's a high possibility that you will have to consolidate multiple UTXOs, which
Right.
means multiple inputs. So if you have 4 UTXOs of zero point 0.5, 0.25 BTC, then you have 4 inputs, and obviously then the transaction size goes up, and then you have to pay a higher fee. And that is why people say that, you must have seen on social media that a lot of people encourage each other to consolidate their
Right.
transactions when the fees are low. I think 2 3 weeks ago the fees were exponentially low. They were like, for a couple of days at least, there was 6 sites for virtual byte, 7 sites for virtual byte. That is when a lot of people were like posting on social media that, hey, consolidate your coins, this is the time. So yeah,
Right.
if you have a bigger UTXO, ideally your fee will be less as compared to consolidating multiple UTXOs.
But unless you're using your Bitcoin Core wallet, I don't think there's a way to know, right? That I have a lot of small UTXOs. How can I know if I'm using Green Wallet or Blue Wallet or Moon Wallet?
Uh, you can. I mean, if you go to Sparrow Wallet, okay, in a mobile phone, I'm very sure, because I've rarely ever used mobile phones to make any payments. If, for
Hmm.
instance, you use Sparrow Wallet or Wasabi Wallet, right? Every single transaction that we have received till this day, there is this memory that it preserves, right? All your addresses are preserved. All the payments that you've received have preserved. So yes, you can. It might not allow you to click on that transaction and inject that transaction as an input, but it gives you a complete
Hmm.
overview. Almost all wallets, desktop wallets at least, give you a complete overview of all the addresses to which you receive payments till date, and all the amount that you received, the date, the time, the everything. You can even click on it. For instance, on Sparrow Wallet, you can go to it'll directly take you to. It might not directly take you to, but you can copy the address and go to a mempool dot space and do whatever you want to. It gives you a lot of information, but it might not allow you to inject and handpick a UTXO that you want to use for a transaction. Now Lightning is doing that. I think.
Right, right. No,
I'm
that
sure.
makes sense. And even with just to complete one point, Mango, that I think even mobile wallets, you can go to transaction history and you can check the amounts received on the address. So it's like you'll have to be, it's a little manual process, but it's still possible for someone to know if there are a lot of small UTXOs.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
I think
building
that's possible.
and also Electrum on Android, Electrum mobile on Android.
Hmm.
I've never used
Okay.
it.
Somebody suggested me today that Electrum is the best mobile on-chain wallet. I have not used it till now.
Yeah, Electrum is pretty extensive. Uh,
Expensive. Okay.
very extensive. Their features, they're
Okay,
very
expensive. Right. Nice.
feature rich.
Nice.
I
But
mean, the wallet format is also different, right? They don't use the BIP32, BIP39 mnemonic suite kind of a thing. The
yeah,
same
yeah,
space is slightly different, right?
exactly. Yeah, they're the seed generation. It's not BIP39. It's something else.
Oh shit.
Uh,
Okay.
but they do. You can import BIP39 seed into Electrum. But if you generate a wallet in Electrum, it's not BIP39. It's something
You
else.
can import a wallet, but you cannot create a wallet.
You can create, but that is not compatible to BIP39. It's something
Right.
else.
Right. Got it.
So basically, you can't import an Electrum wallet elsewhere.
You can if you know. I'm not sure how you can, but it's possible you can. I'm pretty sure you can.
Okay, yeah, I think even if you go to Sparrow, no, when you're trying to import the wallet, they have a huge list. Like whether you want to import a cold card wallet or a Jade wallet or an ABC wallet or an Electrum wallet. So I think there's a mechanism. Maybe there's some mechanism where you click on Electrum and you input some relevant data and they'll kind of get your history. Might not be a mnemonic seed, but some other mechanism through which they kind of get your data.
Same goes with Wasabi wallet. If you generate a wallet in Wasabi, and if you import it in other wallets, there is some difference. I'm not sure what it is, but there is some sort of a difference. There is some sort of a customization you need to do so that you can import all the addresses.
Cool, right. I personally believe it's always advisable. I mean, I don't know. It's not an advice, but something that I personally follow is that it's always better to have one wallet in two different clients. Like for instance, if for somebody's using a Jade, then obviously they'll have it paired with their Green wallet, but also maybe they can pair it with their Sparrow wallet. So it's always better to have at least two wallets per each account that you have, and not to completely rely on one software or one company. And even if you have funds, if you have like decent funds, it's always better to have at least two devices on which you have your funds instead of just putting all your eggs in one basket. That is what I feel. Okay, cool. We're at 9 too. What-
And
let's
maybe
let's
even
take one.
Samurai wallet also has coin selection, I think.
Okay, now have you like a wallet pro man? How many wallets have you explored?
No, I haven't been using any wallet lately, but I mean these are
My hands shiver when I have to import a wallet. So I like no, I'm not exploring.
yeah. I mean I used to play around when the mempool was 1 sats per VB.
Yeah, you can. That is something that I recommend as well. I mean, not playing with such life changing wealth if somebody has that in Bitcoin, but yeah, a few sats here and there. I still like exploring new wallets, new implementations, but yeah, a few sats, maybe a few thousand sats here and there. You can explore it. It basically it's also good for academically good. You're up to date with what's happening. So it's a good habit to fiddle with new toys, wallets, etc.
Somebody told me that
Nine.
Zeus wallet has become really amazing. They have recently released a new update. I'll try it out tonight.
Which one?
Okay.
Zeus wallet. Zeus is the first Bitcoin self-custody Lightning wallet, which is also has a on-chain balance. So it's not like Moon, which is like a ripped off version of a both Lightning and on-chain wallet. But Zeus also actually enables you to have an embedded node, a Lightning node running on your wallet, and also has an on-chain balance. So it shows you one. I am yet to try it out, so I might not. I might miss some details, but it allows you to run an embedded node or connect to Zeus LSP or and also have an on-chain balance all in one.
Are you aware of Darth coin on Stack News?
Yes, Darth. Yeah, I've read his blog. Yes,
Okay. I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, he has a really extensive guide on that
yes,
on Ellen
right
wallets,
wallets.
and Zeus was ranked the best in that.
Yes, yes.
I think we
I've
spoke about
heard that name, but never tried.
Sorry, I missed your question.
Did we speak about this when we are talking about Moon? I'm not sure. No, it is not with you. No, fair.
Zeus also allows you to pay to Noster and pubs directly. So I've not used Zaps or I've not used Noster much honestly. So somebody was telling me that you only need someone's NPub to make a payment to them because there's an associated Lightning address with it. So Zeus also allows you to send payments to NPubs.
Okay, so outside the Nostr, I mean, you don't need a Nostr client, right? Because how this encryption does is that
Yes,
you
you only
need a
need his
Nostr
NPub.
client.
Yes.
You go into that Nostr client. Got it. Yeah, that's something I'm not aware of. Yeah, that's a nice feature.
Right.
All
And
right.
Evan, the developer behind Zeus, is
We've
also very approachable. So he's also looking to set up a what's it called? B virtual service provider, yeah, VSP server in India because Zeus is very slow in it. It needs to connect to some server in the US. So I think one person from India was recently became a fan of Zeus and reached out to him. So he's looking to set up a VSP. So if someone can help him out, just putting it out there.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. We've surpassed the 1 hour mark. Okay, I'll just try and briefly go through this. Okay, BIPs 1421 adds BIP 344 for the op-vault, opcode, and related consensus changes that, if activated in a soft fork, would add support for vaults. Unlike vaults possible today with pre-signed transactions, BIP 345 vaults are vulnerable to last-minute transaction substitution attacks. BIP 345 vaults also allow batched operations that make them more efficient than most proposed designs that only use more generic covenant mechanisms. Assuming we understand, all of us here understand what vaults are, and if you don't, I think it's a really cool phenomenon that all of us should check out. Okay, you find some nice articles on the internet. Okay, currently, we are using the pre-signed mechanism of vaults. There are multiple mechanisms that are being proposed to facilitate vaults via covenants, via OpCat, via OpCTV. One of them is also OpVault. So what BIP 1421 says is that it has added support. I mean, it has added code, I believe. It has added code to implement OpVault. It's like an opcode that will enable vaults, but it needs a soft fork. So if that soft fork ever happens, then the code is already in place and we'll have a new opcode called opvault, which will enable vaults without having to rely on the pre-signing mechanism, which is the contemporary mechanism. Okay, and the first one, it's a long one, we can't go into it, but broadly it talks about solving an avenue for block mutability. There was like a bug in the previous versions of Bitcoin core. I think it was uh, after 2018, it wasn't a problem where it was possible for you to have two different blocks with the same headers. Okay, so there are two blocks, both of them have the same hashes, the same block hash. Okay, like the same local root. Okay, so there are two different blocks, okay, but they have the same local root, okay, and one block is invalid, the other block is valid. So your node will first see, for instance, the invalid block, okay, so it will look at the local root and it will recognize that this local root belongs to an invalid block and it will store that information in its cache history. Okay. Now, when the valid block comes, it will see the same local root and it will believe that that same invalid node is being sent to it again and will reject that node. Okay. So this was like an avenue that could have been exploited. Okay, but this like requires like a lot of computational power and a lot of ASIC power, and you'll have to, or somebody who tries to pull that off will have to spend millions and millions of US dollars in brute forcing to be able to do that. But nevertheless, this was an avenue that could have been exploited. It's been fixed. Whoever wants to go into further detail of it can go to newsletter 37 or newsletter 21. And I think newsletter 37 will also direct you to a PDF written by Swat, which is like very detailed if you want to go into how exactly this avenue could have been exploited. We missed this and we'll not be able to cover this, but this, if somebody is interested, then yes, you can go through it. It basically talks about music too, and how music 2 involves multiple rounds of non-interactive signing sessions and how those sessions have to be stored on hardware devices and how hardware devices have limited storage, and that is why how we can come up with an optimal mechanism that with which we can minimize the amount of session data that is stored in the permanent memory of signing devices. This is what it talks about more or less by Salvatore Ringala. So whoever has time and interest, please feel free to go through this article. And that's it for this week. Any closing remarks, Deepdive? Any closing comments or thoughts? Please feel free to go ahead.
Pedal, do you mind just keeping the scroll on the second news item so that I was reading it. I'll just yeah, thanks. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Just to add on to what Faisal said that importing your seed into multiple wallets is a bad idea. So I just remembered something. So there is a tool which I had come across, which captures audio of your keystrokes and is able to predict what keys you're pressing.
Right. Right.
So
That's the
yeah,
comment with Bitcoin, right? That it's a hack. Like even if you're writing an email, they can detect. Yeah, it's so true.
so exactly.
It's a cat
So
and mouse race, right?
yeah, I'm not sure of the tool name. It's basically as if there is a audio, if there is somebody listening to your keystrokes, and you're importing your seed words into whatever, it's possible to get the seed words.
Is it true or not that Google always has your mic on? You have OK Google, or I don't know,
Hey,
even if
that's
you
a
do not.
conspiracy. Has to be a conspiracy theory, man. People say Alexa listens to whatever you're saying, and
Yes,
WhatsApp listens to.
and
You'll find
Google.
memes that whenever
Right.
there's a baby born, Mark Zuckerberg gets to know that there's a baby born, and he's reading all your messages.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bezos is listening to everything that's being said on Alexa, etc. I don't know how to do that. These are probably memes and conspiracy theories. I don't know. Yeah, these things are prevalent on the internet.
I would give a 60-40 possibility, more than 50 at least.
I don't know. But one thing we can take away from this session is never use mechanical keyboards to type your mnemonic seed. Never use mechanical keyboards.
So when a no coiner, not a no for an, when a new coiner is writing down seed words in a paper, right? I even tell them that make sure that you're not pressing really hard when you're writing the seed words, because you will leave a mark on the table or a book or whatever. You're
Right.
writing the seed words in a piece of paper, so make sure that you don't write it really hard, and it's a mark on the table or book which is below it.
Right.
The best way is just to memorize it. Like if you can
No,
memorize it
no.
like
Oh, yeah,
very,
that's
very
not a
strong.
good.
But then again you are susceptible to accidents. I agree. You're susceptible to accidents, memory loss, whatever,
Exactly.
anything, death, memory
I
loss,
mean, yeah,
anything can
it's
happen. So you need a
generational wealth,
copy.
right? So you don't know how you will turn when you are 50 or 60. So
Exactly.
True.
Exactly. Even if there are strategies of not forgetting it, but even then, it's a really bad idea to do that. And it's not at all a standard practice. It's possible. I mean, if you want to, instead of like if people
if you're a
carrying.
refugee exiting a country, then you can, of course, it's a very useful practice. So
Exactly.
everybody should attempt it. I think it's very valuable. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you have to memorize. There's no other way. You keep a backup, but that doesn't mean you don't have to memorize it. You have to memorize it and then also keep a backup.
We are definitely a group of paranoid Bitcoiners. I don't think even
Yeah.
0.1% of Bitcoiners are memorizing their receipt phrase.
No, man. Are
Yeah,
you
I agree.
serious?
I completely agree.
I think 0.1% are non memorizing. What do you think, man? Do you think most Bitcoiners will memorize their mnemonic seeds?
Even if they are, they will not admit it. So don't. So it's. I think it's a very bad
Why
idea
do you
to.
think?
They would not admit it because anybody pointing a gun in your head, and you'll have to spit out your seed words. Uh, and also
But
it's
anybody pointing a gun can tell you, take me to your seed.
so even
No, but
then.
I mean,
If, see, if there's a gun, there's nothing you can do. Okay, if there's a gun, there's nothing you
I
can
mean,
do.
you can at least hope that on the way to your seat word somebody spots it. But yeah, it's a good point.
So
If there's a
so
gun
another.
in the story, then it's over.
Yeah. So there's a $10, what, $5 wrench attack. Even that is, but even then, like yeah, even with the backup, memorizing, I feel is not good idea. I mean, it's a not a good idea in the sense that, for example, like if you are hallucinating, or if you are in, you don't know what kind of situation you would be in, right? If it's there right on top of you,
That is
if it's very easily accessible, right? Like there are instances when people talk in their dreams.
So
keep
this
talking. Yeah, I
entertain
understand.
me with this scenario. So I used to imagine that in case government bans Bitcoin tomorrow and says that all Bitcoiners are terrorists, then I will probably just remember my seed words and try to exit this country. So my strategy was this. But what do you think of this? If I send my seed words to my sister, who's outside of India, but it does get sent over the internet, even on Signal or Simplex. Is that a good strategy? Is my seed so I prevent myself the torture of in case I forget. So I will burn all my backups so that there's no way that they can get my Bitcoin. And when I'm exiting the country, I am hoping that I don't get forgetful or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
do you think the other option of sending it to my sister, I trust her enough that she'll not steal my Bitcoin from me, then I can in future get it to another wallet, and that's how I can
Yeah.
keep myself safe.
Yeah, that is fair. That's fair.
Hmm.
Like, like these days, right? Like every not these days, like every more than once a month, you see people coming from Dubai carrying gold in their prison wallet, for just for the 10% markup in gold, right?
Wow.
There is
How much gold can one human keep it in their prison wallet?
a 1 kg apparently. I saw like two
Wait,
three days back.
okay, wow. I think yeah, with
In
seed words we are safe, right?
yeah, exactly.
Would you recommend to someone to travel at the airport with their mnemonic state? Well, it's in a form of
It is risky. It
Uh,
is risky for sure.
it is risky, but so you don't need to do, you
metal
don't need
plate.
to, yeah, metal plate or not even that, right? You can do like 128 binary data,
No,
zero
even
zero
metal
zero.
plate is risky. So, Faisal, I think we are considering different risks. The risk that I'm considering is the custom officer harassing you and taking away your
Yes,
suitcase. Yeah, so
yes,
they
Yeah,
will.
yes.
metal.
Open what's in your bag, ABCD. He sees that plate,
Yeah, you are a Bitcoiner.
and
Nobody's
then
going to come
if
and
he
say,
sees that page, you can't see, and I have this right and I have that right. You can't sit there. And they get to know what wallets look like and what seed plates look like and what mechanisms people use to safeguard their money, and then it's going to be very difficult. I still feel, I mean, among all the avenues that we mentioned, all the possibilities that we mentioned, there are loopholes. I personally feel that the best one has to be memorizing. The chances of you hallucinating and sleep talking is very, very, very minimal. Like somebody sleep talking and hallucinating and exactly uttering those 24 words and somebody around you understanding what those 24 words mean at this point in time, the possibility of that happening is very, very little as compared to the possibility of your backend being confiscated by somebody.
right. I think the only risk is shooting yourself in the foot. That is the only risk because now you have to, I mean, you have to at least keep a practice of daily reminding yourself to repeat them in your head. Otherwise, you run the risk of, I mean, you might remember it right now, but 4 months you are just celebrating your life or just doing something else, not like Bitcoin directly. So now you just forget to keep a track.
Right.
Another interesting subject is inheritance planning by time
Yeah.
locking and
So yeah, I'm a lawyer, so definitely one business model that I'm going to create for myself is becoming that one key holder for your children, so that I cannot run away with your Bitcoin, but you also get the guarantee that your children has one key and he cannot spend it until the time that you decide for him. Usually when he's an adult, and then
Mhm.
even if you die, he has one key, I have one key, so we can move funds. So this
There
is
is a
the
technique, Shreyan, like even without involving a third party lawyer, if you trust your son or inheritance, your nominee, with the information that what your balance is, if you're able to, if you
right.
trust with that information, I think you can, uh, uh, there is a technique with using time locks.
Yes, yes, yes. You can do it. Yes, it's very easy. It's very easy. It's
Yeah.
like you can create a time lock that the output will be spendable only after this time, or the tap script condition will have the different condition that can be spent by just myself, right? So I don't think you even need a TypeScript for that. You can just apply a time lock, and just
Yeah.
before the time lock is about to expire, or even 1 year before that, You can
You just
spend
need
that
to
output to another time lock. So yeah, that's
only one transaction, only one UTXO. You need to make a transaction, and then the time lock will be the older transaction will be
yes,
moved on.
will be invalidated. Yeah. So the new
Yeah,
time
yeah.
lock will be now applicable. Yes, it's actually
Fair.
very easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you aware of this the PGP case, Zimmerman case in US,
Yes.
1995,
Yes.
94?
Yes. 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 Code is
Yeah.
speech precedent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there an equivalent constitutional thing in
Mm,
here in India?
Not in India, to the best of my knowledge. There is no governs code as speech. We have precedents which govern code as copyright. So Bitcoin can actually fall under intellectual property law more than freedom of speech currently as per the constitution. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like you can trade Bitcoin under copyright. That it's my computer, it's my Bitcoin full node, so I have the copyright to claim over my device. But it's actually not easy because Bitcoin is under open MIT open license, so you cannot even claim copyright. So Bitcoin stands in a very weird place in India, legally speaking. There's no clear regulation that can prevent us, as in clear provision in the constitution.
It's a good idea to have a El Salvador visa application ready, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys, should we wind up for the day?
Yep.
This is like is a rabbit hole of its own. It'll take hours and hours if we continue down this line.
Yeah, there's actually a consultant in El Salvador who runs a Twitter account Escape to El Salvador, and he's a very approachable guy. Just as somebody who's curious about what I can plan for, then he can help you create a visa for El Salvador, a passport for El Salvador.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I like my place here. I
No,
would love to be here.
but you are Mango. I have my face and my name out there. Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right, yeah, thanks for showing up. All right. Good night, see y'all on what's next.